Our reading today is from the Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church in Portland, Maine. Shared ministry and leadership. So, what is a shared ministry, anyhow? Our church is a vibrant community of people, dependent on the shared efforts of all of our members for it to live its mission and values. We understand ministry not merely as the work of our ordained minister, but rather as shared by all the members of the church. Ministry is a quality of presence we bring to our work and our connections in the church, a spirit of compassion, kindness, hope, and reverence. Any work in the church can be a ministry if we bring ourselves to it with that intention. Leadership is an important part of shared ministry and critical to the overall well-being of our congregation. Our leaders are like the threads that bind us together. Through committee processes, overseeing finances, caring for our building, and shaping the direction of our future. Shared ministry also means that lay members of the church participate in presenting worship services, visiting the elders, caring for the sick, supporting our children and youth, fostering spiritual growth, and working for social justice in the wider world. Shared ministry means that we need your talents and skills and passions to help us be fully alive.
Thank you. Now, if you would put your computer on speaker view if you want to see me, I'm going to give you some words to think about shared ministry. Okay. A popular topic amongst theologians and religious leaders for more than 20 years has been, what will the church of the 20th century look like? And by church of the 20th century, I mean a religious institution. We are one. But what is the future of the church in the 21st century? Now, even before COVID, megachurches were in decline. They continue to shrink and collapse. Even before COVID, all denominations, all religions in the United States were in decline. Fewer and fewer people were going to church. Nuns were rapidly rising. And a nun is when you fill out a Pew survey or a survey and you identify your religious affiliation, at the very bottom is the box nun. And nuns have been significantly increasing for a good 30 years. All that was before COVID, but since COVID and with virtual worship services, the theologians and religious writers have become prophets in describing the future of the church. These opinions range over a huge spectrum. All sorts of things. Some opinions. The church will emphasize an online ministry and physical worship will be for a small number of people. Another person will write, the church worship services will be a hybrid of both in-person and virtual. Others, the church will be more about connecting rather than gathering. And in June, I even talked about this in a service titled, The Church Has Left the Building. Another view is that the church will try to return exclusively to pre-COVID services. That church that tries that will ultimately collapse because of the lack of interest and participation. Today, there are such an incredible wide range of forecast that it's obvious they cannot all be correct. Maybe one or two will come close, but there will be a lot of prophecies that will be totally wrong. I went to a Christian seminary, and in one of my Bible classes, we studied the prophets of the Hebrew Bible. Hebrew Bible is also known as the Old Testament. One of the observations of my teacher shared has really stayed with me about that class, and I found it to be true in my readings of the Hebrew Bible. In the early part of the Old Testament, prophets were very specific in their predictions. When their predictions came true, they were lauded as being messengers of God. When their predictions were wrong, they were often killed by an angry king. Over the centuries, the prophet's predictions became far less specific and much more general. Over time, the predictions became so vague that most people could always find a way to interpret their predictions as correct and coming true. This is the genius of a vague prediction. And a vague prediction is something like, things will be different in the future. Another vague prediction, there will be great joy and sorrow throughout the kingdom. One of my favorites, things will get worse before they get better. So if you're a prophet in a king's court and want to keep your job, the advice is to be as vague and nonspecific as possible in your predictions. The Berry Street Essay was established by the Reverend William Ellery Channing in 1820 for the Ministerial Conference in Berry Street. It is thought to be the oldest, longest running lecture series in the United States, and is now traditionally offered at the conclusion of Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association Ministry Days, which precedes our General Assembly. This year's Berry Street Essay was titled, From Bended Knee, A Theology of Shared Ministry, given by the Reverends Jane Eller Isaacs and the Reverend Bob Eller Isaacs, a couple who have been together in shared ministry for almost 40 years. Now, I've attended most of the essays over the last 10 years at pre-GA, and the essays are very much akin to the prophets of old, giving warnings and predictions to save us from decline or destruction. This year, I was enthralled with the essay because of how much I agree with the prophecy they offered. These two seasoned Unitarian Universalist ministers see the need to reframe and reform many aspects of the Unitarian Universalist Church to a model of true shared ministry as a theology. What are some of their prophetic warnings? Well, they quoted church historian Diana Butler Bass, who called the church of the future as one called a practicing congregation. What's a practicing congregation? The essayist said that, quote, as opposed to being adorning fans of some heroic preacher, participants in a practicing congregation embody the teachings and value of the church at the very core of their lives. The church's disciplines become their practice. Centered in the experience of the holy, they learn to testify that experience and encourage others to like encounters of their own. End quote. Our denomination, Unitarian Universalism, has historical roots in the direct experience of the holy. We call them the Transcendentalist. In the 1820s and 1830s, this movement was a countercultural or a corrective initiative to the Unitarian Church of the time, which emphasized, the Transcendentalist emphasized a return to the early form of Christianity, direct experience of the holy. This direct experience was often to be found in nature. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Theodore Parker, Henry David Thoreau, William Henry Channing, James Freeman Clarke, Margaret Fuller, all were Unitarian Transcendentalists telling us we need to be shared. The Eller Isaacs, the essayist, continue on, quote, "At the heart of the transcendentalist corrective is the notion that the church is in the world to encourage the experience of the holy and to frame that experience in ways that lead us to live lives of integrity, service, and joy." Close quote. That part of the essay moved me greatly. I've seen congregations on the East Coast like they described, quote, adoring fans of some heroic preacher. This kind of church seems vibrant outwardly, but is so fragile that a church like that often comes crashing down when the heroic preacher leaves. This kind of church seems to be composed of people who enjoy the entertainment and the mental stimulation of worship services. But a congregation whose members are entertained or mentally challenged only is not a sustainable church. They have no skin in the game. So when the entertainment wanes, the audience leaves. This is where the prophecy of shared ministry comes in as a meaningful prediction for the church of the 21st century. Jan Carlson Bull writes it this way: "The notion of shared ministry comes from the early Christian concept of what Martin Luther called the priesthood of all believers. In the early Christian church, there were no ministers, no priest. It was informal, egalitarian. Each believer was expected to draw upon her or his distinctive gifts to build up the Christian community. Not an easy task in the tumultuous times of the Roman Empire, and it's certainly no easier today in these tumultuous times." So a church of shared ministry is where all members embody the teachings and values of the church at the very core of their lives. The church's disciplines become their practice. A church of shared ministry consists of every member practicing their ministry in harmony with the church's mission and vision. This is done in community. It's all about practice, a practice which extends beyond Sunday mornings, a practice which extends beyond entertainment. But what's in it for you? I mean, why would you, a super busy person, what would you gain from choosing to spend your life energy on practicing shared ministry? What will you gain from doing more for this fellowship? What's in it for you? What's in it for you? How about more meaning in life? The essayist, the Eller Isaacs, answered the question this way: at the heart of transcendentalism is the notion that the church is in the world to encourage the experience of the holy and to frame that experience in ways that lead us to live lives of integrity, service, and joy. I would say a life of meaning. And for me, you can't get to experience of the holy until you turn your time and energy toward serving others. This is not easy. It takes a lifetime of practice. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of showing vulnerability. It means getting hurt. It means getting disappointed. It means trying again and again when things don't go well. This is not easy. Shared ministry is full of challenges and is often confusing. But we can only be what we work together to become. We can only be what we work together to become. I prophesize that our church, our fellowship in the 21st century will be one of shared ministry. I predict that if we truly embrace shared ministry, where everyone is contributing, this fellowship will be here 50 years from now and beyond that. I forecast that if this fellowship emphasizes the personal experience of the holy as a key to a meaningful life, we will improve the world beyond what any one of us can do separately. I prophesize that we will thrive if we act like the ministries of our congregation do not belong exclusively to the ordained clergy, but to everyone. The ministries of this congregation belong and depend on everyone. Let's work together to see if my prophecy comes true. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe.